okay? I know I look a little bit ridiculous, but that's the whole point. It's meant to go with the theme of the video. It's a bit more serious than what I'd usually talk about. So if things like SA, rape, sexual assault, violence, terrorism, or depression and loneliness make you feel a certain type of way, then I'm going to put a trigger warning right here. It's quite sullen today, isn't it? I'm in quite a depressive little mood. Today, as you can tell from the title, I wanted to talk about the science behind Inceldom. I was actually planning on doing a review of She-Hulk first, but I'm planning on doing that for my next video instead, because I just haven't had the time. I've been doing my dissertation. I've got like 2 or 3 big assignments due in a matter of weeks. While I was researching for my dissertation and looking at scientific papers and journals, I found quite a few social study and psychological study papers on incels. I'll just jump right into it. So, incel is a term coined from the mid-1990s by a woman from Canada who was called Alana. She started a website and a kind of chat thing called Ilana's Involuntary Celibacy Project. You probably know this if you've watched videos about incels in the past, but this is where the term comes from. Involuntary celibacy is the act of abstaining from sexual or even romantic relationships through no conscious control or will. So this is something that you feel you have no say in the matter on whether you get bitches or not, basically. From here, incels have been morphed into these racist, homophobic, misogynistic and even misandrist groups of individuals, in my opinion. These ideals are based on nothing but pseudoscience, and that's what I'm really interested in. I want to know why these men have kind of stuck onto these pseudosciences and gone, yeah, that seems reasonable, when it's very clearly not. It's a pseudoscience at the end of the day. So for today's video, I'm planning on explaining what incels believe, as well as why they believe it, or why scientists believe that they think the things that they think, and how it affects the real world, and the scientific research done into incels. I'll be talking a lot about that, so there'll be a lot of references at the bottom for papers that I found to do with research into incels, traditional masculinity, men, violence against women, things like that. So like I said, if any of those things bother you, I wouldn't recommend watching this video. The primary research of this video, using a paper by Vallegra and, I'm going to really screw this name up, Zurbriggen from 2022. It's a really good paper. If you get the chance to read it, I was really, really happy with it. It sums things up about incels quite nicely. It's called Hegemonic Masculinities in the Manosphere, a thematic analysis of beliefs about men and women on the red pill and incel. They analysed the beliefs of these men about men and women from a group of 227 incel posts from 2 main manosphere group chats or message boards. For those who don't know, the manosphere is the collective internet culture of anti-feminism. This is going to be a really hard video to get through. Anti-feminism and pro-masculinity. So pro-traditional masculinity is what we're talking about here. When we say pro-masculine, we're talking about traditional masculine values. In this study, they found that there are 3 tiers to developing the ideals that incels have. And we're going to start with tier 1, which is scientific justification. So scientific justification helps men of the manosphere to start separating themselves from women in categories by using cold hard facts and logic that doesn't care about your whiny little woman feelings. They lean towards gender essentialism, and gender essentialism is essentially completely separating any form of gender. So men are on this side, women are on this side, and they are completely different. They have nothing in similar. So this gives them an explanation as to why women and men are so different through their eyes, and they do this through biological, psychological, and innate explanations. So they like to explain all of this off by blaming it on things that can't be changed, things that can't be helped, things that are biological or psychological that are difficult to unlearn, and therefore no one will do it. They then follow with the application of evolutionary biology and psychology, which obviously winds me up, such as, oh, well, men are resource gatherers and women look for resources in men, and that's why all women are gold diggers, when we know that that does not apply to the modern age and is not realistic really at all. But from this first tier, we can see that these men really enjoy generalization, the reduction of complex topics, and pretending like we don't live in a socio-economically complex world. It's the modern day. We don't live in Unga Bunga times anymore, and I think a lot of these men don't get that, and they don't want to put blame on anything but innate biology and the way our ancestors used to live. These men tend to rely on logic and the removal of emotion by stating it's a woman-only trait. Men can't be emotional. You see where I reference traditional masculinity? It's coming back again in the form of this. They tend to echo really harmful parts of traditional and hegemonic masculinity. Hegemonic masculinity is compared all the time in scientific papers to modern incels because of what hegemonic masculinity is the belief that men are dominant in every sense of the term, and women should be submissive and should follow what men say. Men need to be tough and emotionless. Women need to do everything that's the polar opposite. So yet again, this gender essentialism that's taking part. And doesn't that sound like a delightful world to live in? Though these men spout scientific language and jargon like sexual strategy, or they'll say economic jargon like sexual market value or SMV, they're using them all wrong. It's just a load of crap. They say things like humans have evolved a sixth sense to know when we are being lied to, and they say a lot of terms to do with women, such as their biology allows them to blank or blank. My personal favourite is neurologically, the female brain hasn't changed much since the caveman era. They still desire whatever it was best for the genetic fit for them back in the day. I tried to find a scientific paper showing how cavemen brains have stayed the same for women specifically, and who'd have thunk it? I can't find shit. Men really like to big themselves up and make them sound smarter than they actually are, and try to use this scientific jargon as a way to say, this is right, this makes the most sense, and anything that you're about to say to me doesn't make sense. This essentialism for biology and psychology and gender obviously impacts other beliefs, and will therefore influence politics, as said by Swig and Meyer from 2019, rights for trans, LGBTQ and women, the right to exist, vote, have healthcare. We're seeing that in America right now, and this was proved by Wilton et al. 2019, and the rejection of the possibility for total gender equality, which was proved by O'Neill in 2018. These men like to play the whole cold hard facts and logic card a lot, as a way to kind of shut you down, and they tend to use complex and intelligent sounding jargon, like I said, to sound smarter than they actually are, when we know they're not that smart. They use this rather than being realistic and considering the fact that it's a complex world that we live in. We live in a really complex time in a complex world, and social interactions are complex, socioeconomic factors in life are complex, biological factors can be complex, not to mention the biological misinformation that they spread and sprout. So they'll talk about things like phrenology, which is the study of bones and how they affect other parts of your life and your biology. It's a pseudoscience. It's a pseudoscience, just like eugenics, just like anything else. It's a pseudoscience. It's a pseudoscience. That's all I'm saying. So phrenology is not to blame for you being unsuccessful in the dating market, I hate people calling it the dating market, it's just people being people. We don't need to put a label on it like that. It's not an economy. It's not to blame for you being unsuccessful sexually, you're just a horrible person. Simply misapplying, misconstruing and distorting the truth behind evolution and anthropology, which is not what we want in biology, trust me. You are not allowed to let your opinions get in the way of basic biological fact, and basic biological fact does not support phrenology. It does not support these behaviours that they believe women have. Tier 2. Attitudes and beliefs. So we'll start off with the men, of course, men first. Alphas and chads. Men who are seen by the manosphere as conventionally attractive and successful in nearly every venture of life, so economically, sexually, and socially successful. Beta are men who give any plethora of objects of desire to primarily women, such as money, stability, and/or attention to receive the sexual interactions that men are so desperate for. Incels are the men who are too unattractive and unsuccessful to receive any sexual or romantic success. Red-pilled men are men who decide to improve upon their physical appearance, not any other factor. You know, don't improve your personality or your politics or your beliefs or anything. Don't worry about any of that. They only improve their physical appearance to improve their chance of sexual success. This is also known by another term called looks-maxing. Black pill is the penultimate final stage wherein these men lose hope of sexual success and see this as having no hope or purpose in life, and therefore resort to grandiose acts of violence and/or suicide. If the last one sounds like a bit of a dramatic jump, that's because it is. Dramatic jump from becoming a gym bro to committing violent acts of terror and a drop into severe depression is extreme, in my opinion. Now we'll go on to women. There's no categories for women that was proposed by this scientific paper, so they only found categories of behaviour that men have spotted in these women. These are assumed by these men, by the way. They are not observed. There is no anecdotal evidence, nor is there any scientific proof that women do these behaviours. So the first one is deception. As we all know from the sacred texts, women do nothing but twerk, be bisexual, charge they thorn, eat hot chip, and lie. Deception refers to the belief that women are inherently deceptive to themselves, to men, to other women around them, to their social groups, to anyone, everyone and anyone, by overestimating their self-worth and physical appearance, to lying about their sexual conquests and lying about pregnancies, to trap a man, and covering up cheating, even though statistically men cheat in relationships more than other women. The General Social Survey found that men are more likely to cheat than women, with 20% of men and 13% of women reported having sex with someone other than their partners while still married, as well as 1 in 5 British male adults admitting to having an affair. I'm not saying that women do not do these behaviours and that they don't happen, because I've watched enough Jeremy Kyle in my lifetime. I miss you, my king. I've watched enough of that show to know that these behaviours do happen, but I am saying that they are not normal. They're not normalised, and most regular handy-dandy women will not do these acts in the modern day. This is also very alarming for women who report cases of rape or sexual assault, because these are already underreported and underpunished crimes. By this is damaging because it's summarising that women are constantly lying, and therefore if women are constantly lying, this means that we're lying about rape and sexual assault. And this allows more sexually aggressive behaviour and assaults to become normalised, such as rape, as shown by Chaplow and Oswald in 2010. I thought I'd give everyone this little quote that I found in this section of the paper under deception. I thought it was quite interesting. This came straight from one of the message boards. It's in their nature to deceive sexually, whether it's lying about their past sexual exploits and end counts being the number of sexual partners, or tricking people into pregnancy, or cheating and using sex in a relationship to manipulate behaviours. Next categorical behaviour is promiscuity. As we know, these hoes ain't loyal. The second theme about women's motivations is that women are inherently promiscuous was promoted across both of these boards that were looked at by these two scientists. This promiscuity was attributed to evolution, which we all know is bollocks. The whole hypothesis is that they need to find the most fit mate, someone who is physically fit and well-resourced. However, this belief immediately rung bells in my little ding-a-ling thing, because Incel's favourite thing in the world, which is called hard facts and logic, does not support this. Sexual evolutionary behaviour commonly states that men are the promiscuous ones and women cannot afford to be promiscuous evolutionary-wise. This doesn't mean that women can't be promiscuous, it just means that since they like to rely on evolution so much, this doesn't add up. Women cannot afford to be promiscuous, as evolutionary-wise, they have to raise children, find the best mates, survive childbirth, carry children for 9 months, raise these children to a decent age. So, sorry boys, but you lot get to just pump and dump it, therefore you can afford to be promiscuous evolutionary wise, we cannot. I'm not saying that that's how it works in the modern day, I'm just using these incels' way of thinking against them. I'm saying this doesn't make sense. I'm not agreeing with that statement. I think evolutionary biology is a representation of the past and not the current, okay? It does not explain many modern behaviours in my opinion. But sorry boys, but evolutionary sexual theories do not agree with you on this one. Sorry. However, this is manipulated by the manosphere into being that women are only promiscuous for the top 20% of men, which is known as the 80-20 rule, as I mentioned earlier. This ultimately is just an excuse for men to slut-shame women and be misogynistic. As Billie Eilish once famously said, "Why is every good-looking girl with a horrible-looking man?" And if you answer that question with money, well, I just think you're misogynistic, I'm sorry. If you think that that's all women want out of life, that's you turning on the ape brain again and thinking women only want resources. I pay my own damn bills, and so do a majority of women. 45% of women are reported to be fully happy and self-financially sufficient, according to Fidelity research. Also, something else that I found interesting is that some of the incels have different thoughts upon this. Red pill posters generally see promiscuous women as an opportunity for sexual domination, and true incels tend to see them as a sign of moral decay. It's almost like when women are out of reach, they become bitter because they aren't sexual objects for them to utilize anymore. The next category is trading sex for power. This seems to be the only power that these men see as a power that's purely feminine. They tend to see that women are the only person who can do this, and instead of seeing this as it is something that does happen, and instead of seeing it as a patriarchal issue, they tend to blame women for utilizing this power, whether it's getting money, whether it's climbing the social ladder, getting a new job. We've all heard stories about these rich, powerful men sleeping with these assistants and promising these assistants the world. I'm going to get you a better job, I'll give you money. That's what sugar daddies and sugar babies are for. OnlyFans. I mean, a lot of men say that if they were women, they'd do the exact same thing. We can see why women do this, and we know that it's because of this patriarchal world that we live in, but these incel men do not believe that. They believe women are being purely manipulative and deceptive, as we've stated earlier. They also believe that no millionaires can become incels, which I thought was quite interesting, as they have the money needed to satiate women's resource hunger. Fearing this supposed domination of women, these men seek to dominate women by any means necessary. This is why they put women down in these multitude of ways. Glick and Fisks, I think that's how you say his name, in 1996 used a sexism scale and found that those men who agreed that women use power and sexuality to dominate men were more likely to have general hostility towards women. Tier 3 is Action by Don Brock. The first act that incels will take part in is self-improvement. The general message of a red pill and this action has no inherent negativities. You know, if you're bettering yourself, good for you. I wish you a lot of luck with that. But for incels, this can very quickly turn into something very sour. They become more agentic, less emotionally expressive, more physically attractive, matching their behaviour with the endorsement of traditional masculine traits of being action-orientated, stoic, and physically emotional and strong. They have to lift, have a social network, have hobbies, make money outside of work, do these things to rank up your SMV, as I mentioned earlier, sexual market value. Now, this doesn't seem very harmful, right? This is, fair enough. Go out and make friends, exercise, be social, get a hobby, live like a normal person. Please. However, for incels, it tends to lead to this process of bullying. I've witnessed this even amongst regular men. I think it must be part of traditional masculinity. Obviously, as a woman, I do not know. Men are a lot meaner to their friends, I've noticed, and this definitely happens on incel forums. This bullying is seen as a source of inspiration for these people, this self-objectification and a deeper sense of self-hatred and over not making enough progress. You're not lifting enough, you've not got enough friends, your hobbies are boring, no girl will like these hobbies, you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, are your wrists less than 5 inches diameter? Why is your skull so small? Why is your chin so indented? What's wrong with you? Why does your skull look like that? Why are your collarbones like that? Why do you look like this? You can see that this pattern of belief and behaviour tends to spiral and leads to self-objectification and poor self-esteem. This leads to body checking, eating disorder behaviour and general body shame, and this tends to be quite common amongst men, as David et al. 2018 found. This bullying behaviour helps no one, and you may see it as a source of inspiration and you trying to be all macho and hard and not receiving any nice and positive feedback, but positive feedback does go a long way. The next one is quite a dark one, so I will warn you yet again, it is on the topic of suicide. This is where things start to turn especially dark and people start to get hurt by incel action, with the transformation from red pill to the black pill. These men are so self-hating that they believe this rottenness that they have and this ugly outer exterior and this social awkwardness and this incompetency is permanent and it can't be changed. They can't looks max, none of it works. I can't get a new hobby, it doesn't make me more interesting. I've tried talking to 50 girls today and it's gotten me nowhere. I can't talk to 5, that's pointless. Often incel posters pessimistically decide that they're going to lay down and rot. You've probably heard that phrase before. This was coupled with expressions of how they find things less enjoyable than they used to and tend to sleep all day. And these experiences are very consistent with ways in which depression manifests in men specifically, as found by the American Psychological Association in 2019. Endorsement of and failure to live up to traditional masculine ideas also leads to this anxiety and stress, which will not help the depression, as shown by O'Neill in 2013. And the final action behaviour is violence against women. The final and dark chapter for these men that usually results in suicide. When masculinity is under threat, men can react in an aggressive manner, as shown by Bosson et al. In 2009, as an expression of frustration with their lack of progress and sexual success. Incel posters spoke of their desire for violence against other people, specifically women, most of the time. We all know the case of Elliot Rodgers and how he specifically perpetrated against cheerleaders and popular girls at his college, I believe it was. They do tend to have a target towards women. These men also revel in women's suffrage by frequently discussing things like rape and sexual assault and femicide. This societal problem in their view is that women are not sharing their sexuality equally with everyone because they are acting upon their own sexual preferences rather than the desires of others, and that is where the issue lies. So this is why they enact violence against women. They see it as a form of revenge, as getting back at those who hold all the sexual power. God forbid women have one power in the world, and that is sexuality, and then we start using it how we want and men don't like it, so we can't win, basically. I thought I'd read out some of the quotes that these men have about rape just as an incitement, just so that you understand where they're coming from. That's what would ultimately happen. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying, based on how more and more men are becoming incel due to the sexual distribution getting more unequal, the only way some men would be able to obtain sex would be via rape. If all of us grab a weapon or a knife, we can make this the day of Incel Independence Day. Now, the explanations as to why. I found two main studies about why. One of them is from Cornell in 2005, explaining why femicide was on the increase and why violent actions against women and crimes against women were on the increase. So Cornell said that religion has been replaced by science in a way due to the lack of the belief in common modern religions and deities. It is true that modern religions are falling out of popularity. I mean, the 2001 UK census said that for the first time, less than half, 46.2% of the British population described themselves as Christian, with non-religion and atheism being some of the more common answers. Cornell argues that due to this lack of faith in higher powers and placing reasoning in Christ, as a figure, the cold hard facts stated by science have taken that place of Christ and God as an explanation for the way that things are, and as per usual has been misconstrued and twisted to fit an agenda, just like it does with race, homosexuality, transsexuality, and other liberation movements. However, like all things in life, this is complex, and there is one more topic that has been relatively ignored up until now, and that is the mental health of men. Hikikomori, which is a Japanese word for adults and adolescents that have become socially withdrawn and isolated and do not leave their homes for months or even years. This has been on the rise in Japan specifically, but not just Japan. We know that this is on the rise in general. You always see newspapers about how people are becoming more socially isolated, people have less friends than they used to about 30 years in the past, and people do not see each other as much as they used to, etc., etc. People are lonely nowadays. It's not hard to believe. 20 to 40% of young adults reported feeling lonely frequently, by Williams and Braun, 2019. This has been linked to COVID and the rise in technology and its advances. Either way, loneliness obviously helps to isolate these young men from others' opinions, from receiving help with mental health issues, from receiving positive enforcement, and from receiving positive male role models and positive female role models, and this is what eventually leads to the degradation that causes incels to sprout. I know this seems like a bit of a short video to cover incels, but I've only written about 2,000 words. 2,500 is about what I've written. The reason why it's so short is because researching this I was getting really down about it. For my conclusion, men are really damaged and they're very hurt and they're very lonely in the modern era, and I think that's formed a bitterness within them. I think these men are very bitter, they're very lonely, and they tend to slip in depression because of this rhetoric that they get stuck in their heads and plays on a cycle. This form of masculinity would fall under toxic masculinity in my opinion, as it not only seems to damage male well-being but also the well-being of others around them. No one is better off except for you and your sad little friends on your computers laughing and giggling about it. And if that's all you ultimately care about, I think you need to look at the world in a new light. And I think you need a new lease on life, is what I'm saying. When I originally started studying this, I would get really angry at these men. I didn't think they deserved any sympathy. But then as I started looking at the papers for this, I started to feel really sorry for them. These are men who need help in one form or another. Whether we think they deserve it or not, these are men who need help. Some of them, in my opinion, have gone past the point of help. The Black Pill group definitely seems to be a very deeply brainwashed group they all think in this very unison, horrific way. I won't lie, researching this topic has been exhausting, as I mentioned earlier. Having to repeatedly hear that me as a woman is so degrading and a question of morality to these men is not only insulting to me, but also insulting to other women. We're just trying to live our lives just like you are, and sex is not the be-all and end-all of life. And women know that, but I don't think men do, and that's why incels have come about and are primarily white heterosexual men. They are not worth arguing against. Little to nothing is going to change these men's minds because they are so deep into this illness and this blackness that they can't get out of it. At the same time, I've noticed how commonplace misogyny is in the world. I've started to notice it as I've gotten older, and that's why it's so easy for so many men to become incels, because they are raised on these thoughts. Unless you are actively fighting against these thoughts as a man, you might be misogynistic. I'm sorry. Some of the things I've heard out of, as a piece of anecdotal evidence, some of the things I've heard out of the men in my life who have been outwardly misogynistic straight up and don't view it as misogynistic when it is, believing that the pay gap doesn't exist, believing that women have it better overall, or that women have life on easy mode. We don't. The whole point of women's suffrage is that women tend to be murdered more by partners. Women tend to be victims of domestic abuse more often. Women tend to be victims of sexual assault more often. Women don't get paid as much. We are not in higher positions of power like you are, and we do not earn as much as you do. Women have it tougher than you do, and unless you acknowledge that, you will believe these rumours that then can sprout into this intense form of misogyny. Because when you think that women have it on easy, or that all women eat hot chip and lie, you will feed into these misogynistic beliefs that these men have, such as women lie, deception, women lie about cheating, they lie about loving you, they use their sexual power and prowess for manipulation. Women do nothing but manipulate, and then it spirals and spirals until you've got this insane belief system. As women, we have to call out the men in our lives on this, because I cannot have this in the men around me. It feels now more than ever that it is dangerous being a woman when opinions in the manosphere are leaking into the minds of our brothers, our fathers, our boyfriends, our friends, our politicians, anyone who's a man. And it can even infest women as well, who have complexes about being women in their heads, who already have a seed of doubt. So as an overall conclusion, I just wanted this to show the facts of what psychologists and biologists believe is going on with these men. They seem to believe that these men are very damaged. They have a very twisted view of the world, and it's not just them. The incel label can be very broadly attributed to quite a few men. As I said, I think nearly every woman has probably got a story about being assaulted, being told that the gender pay gap doesn't exist, being told that women have it easy, when these things simply aren't true, and we know they're not true, and yet we still believe these lies that come out of incels and their rhetoric. I know this was a really depressing video. I'm really sorry that it was really depressing. I've even got my misery makeup on. I'm quite happy with it, though. I think it's pretty good. Also thought I'd share that I have a Hello Kitty water bottle now. Bit of water bottle ASMR a little bit of water bottle ASMR for everyone. Sorry, I thought I'd liven things up a little bit, because it's getting depressing up in here. I do really hope that you enjoyed this video. You know the usual drill. I will come to your house and give you cookies and milk, and if not, then I will give you vegan alternative cookies and milk. And don't forget to follow my Instagram and Tumblr. Yeah, sorry for this one being a really depressing one. I'm planning on doing a review of She-Hulk and maybe something to do with South Park and FNAF. I recently got a Paramount Plus subscription just so that I could watch South Park. Yeah, I will be hopefully doing a video about South Park, and I've recently been getting into FNAF as well because of the movie that might be coming out soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you have, I promise the next video will be a lot cheerier and a lot happier, because I will not be researching a topic like this again because it had me really bogged down and upset. So thank you, and bye bye.